There's no one more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. These words were written by Goethe almost 200 years ago, but they might be more relevant today than they were back then. Many people assume we live in a free society simply because the West hasn't turned into the dystopian nightmare described in 1984 by George Orwell. They believe this freedom would be obvious and recognized by all. But is that really true? Or are we living in a society similar to the one portrayed by Aldous Huxley in his dystopian novel Brave New World? It could be that technology, drugs, pornography, and other pleasurable distractions have created a citizenship so distracted that they don't even notice the chains that bind them. When Brave New World was first published in 1931, Huxley didn't see the dystopian world he described as an imminent threat. However, 30 years later, after World War II, the spread of totalitarianism, and major advancements in science and technology, Huxley changed his mind. In a speech delivered in 1961, he issued the following warning. In the future, according to Huxley, the ruling classes would learn that controlling a population could be achieved not just through explicit force, but through a more subtle method of drowning the masses in an endless supply of pleasurable distractions. Some might ask, how can pleasure be used to take away people's freedom? To answer that, we need to talk about operant conditioning, a method of modifying an organism's behavior. In the 20th century, Harvard psychologist B.F. Skinner conducted a famous series of experiments in which he tested different methods of introducing new behaviors in rats. These experiments showed how dominant forces could condition humans to love their servitude. In one set of experiments, Skinner tried to cultivate new behaviors using positive reinforcement, giving the rat food every time it performed the desired behavior. In another set, he tried to weaken or eliminate certain behaviors by applying painful stimuli whenever the rat performed the behavior Skinner wanted to eliminate. Skinner found that behaviors shaped by positive reinforcement were more lasting and led to long-term changes in the animal's behavior patterns. Huxley was familiar with Skinner's experiments and understood their socio-political implications. In Brave New World and his later works, Huxley predicted the rise of a controlling oligarchy that would conduct similar experiments on humans to condition them to be docile and minimize the potential for civil unrest. In Brave New World, the primary reward used to condition submission through positive reinforcement was a super drug called Soma. The world controllers encouraged the systematic drugging of their citizens for the benefit of the state. Soma was taken daily by the citizens of Brave New World because it offered what Huxley called holidays from reality. Depending on the dosage, it could induce euphoria, pleasant hallucinations, or act as a powerful sleep aid. It also served to increase suggestibility, thus enhancing the effectiveness of the propaganda that citizens were constantly subjected to. But the world controllers of Brave New World didn't rely solely on Soma. Sexual promiscuity was promoted by the state as another tactic to ensure everyone enjoyed their servitude. The slogan, "Everyone belongs to everyone," was drilled into the minds of citizens from a young age. With the institutions of monogamy and family abolished, everyone could satisfy their sexual urges without restrictions. Constant access to sexual gratification helped ensure that citizens were too distracted to pay attention to the reality of their situation. State-sanctioned entertainment also played a major role in creating the painless concentration camp of Brave New World. What Huxley called the incessant distractions of the most fascinating nature were used by the state as instruments of policy to drown the minds of its citizens in a sea of irrelevance. The parallels between Brave New World and modern societies are undeniable. In Brave New World Revisited, published in 1958, Huxley asked himself how the social engineers of the future could convince their subjects to take drugs that would make them think, feel, and behave in ways desired by the state. He concluded, it will probably be enough just to make the pills available. Today, it's estimated that 1 in 6 form of psychotropic drug. and opium, and the ability to satisfy sexual impulses online. Many to fall into the grip of pornography addiction. Phones and other technologies that consume part of the day. To what extent these distractions are being intentionally pushed onto us, and to what extent they're just spontaneous responses to consumer demand, is unclear. But whatever the case, the reality is that a distracted and dumbed-down population lacks the mental resources to resist its own enslavement. Until the modern cry of, "Give me television and burgers, but don't bother me with the responsibilities of freedom," is replaced by the cry of, "Give me liberty or give me death," freedom will not prevail. On the contrary, as long as people trade their freedom for pleasures and comfort, the kind of social conditioning Huxley warned about will only become more refined and effective as technologies advance and more information is gathered on how to predict and control human behavior. Whether most of us will be able to resist this kind of manipulation, or even want to, remains to be seen. If current trends continue, humanity may soon be divided into two groups: those who embrace their pleasurable servitude and those who choose to resist it for the sake of preserving not just their freedom, but their humanity. For, as former slave Frederick Douglass observed in the mid-19th century, long before Huxley wrote Brave New World, when a slave becomes a happy slave, he has effectively renounced everything that makes him human.